This is IA Forward, your playbook for success as an independent insurance agent. Here to help you knock it out of the ballpark are your hosts, Shane Tatum and Tonya Lead.
Welcome to IA Forward. Shane, let's talk about one of your favorite things today.
Excuses?
Excuses. Yeah, there we go.
I'm not a fan of excuses, and I just feel like we are in this societal excuse mindset. There's an excuse for everything. There's an excuse for why we failed. There's an excuse for why we lost. Especially when I think about sports. We talk a lot about sports here. Well, why'd we lose? Well, it was too hot. It was too cold. The field was too wet. There's just excuse after excuse that I feel like we hear around society, and it's just got under my skin. I'm just kind of done with it.
So when is it a reason and when is it an excuse?
Can you even have a reason and it not be an excuse? I think about excuses around failure. I think excuse equals not owning your failure, right? It's like I can't accept failure, and so I'm just going to make an excuse. And I've never really been that person that wasn't capable of owning my failure. When I run across folks that can't own their failure, in my experiences, they seem to be really good at making excuses.
To me, a reason is almost a scientific concept. I mean, it's an explanation, it's a cause, it's a basis for something happening. An excuse to me is like a reason or an explanation that you're trying to justify a specific set of actions. So to me, you can give a reason for failure because if you're looking at it from a perspective of, okay, what can we do to be better next time? But to me, a reason is something that's more internal than external.
If we want to talk about the we don't lose, we learn, I'm with you. I want to have that mindset. But that to me is not the same thing as, well, here's the reason we lost. The reason we lost really gets on the fence of turning into an excuse. I guess I'm fresh off of watching The Captain, the Derek Jeter documentary. And through the early episodes of that Derek Jeter documentary, he was just a no excuse guy. There was this obvious rivalry between Derek Jeter and Alex Rodriguez as they were growing up through the ranks. And Alex Rodriguez was full of excuses. There was always a reason something was going wrong. There was an excuse. Derek Jeter is we lost and I'm not happy about it. It won't happen again. No, it was my fault. No, it was our fault. We weren't good enough. We will not let this happen again. We'll be better next year. There's just this championship mindset that goes with the no excuses kind of personality versus this chronic excuse maker. And it's vivid inside our agencies. You see it inside really successful agencies and then agencies that seem to chronically struggle to get over a hump. There's something there, and we have to overcome that and find a way to get out of and get away from this excuse societal thing.
If we're talking sports, do you remember Tim Tebow's I Promise speech?
I think I do.
It happened the year after he won the Heisman, and they had this big loss against Ole Miss. They were like a 20-something point favorite and lost the game by 1 point. And he gave this speech afterwards, and he took responsibility for it. And he made this promise that you will never see anybody work harder than he would. And I love that speech because he never once made an excuse.
It wasn't someone else's fault. He didn't throw other people under the bus. And it was not, we had injuries. You know what? It's just, we're going to overcome this. It's this mindset of it doesn't matter what obstacle gets thrown in front of you. You still have to find a way. You have to find a way. You have to overcome. You have to find a way to win. No excuses. I sensed a lot of that in the Tim Tebow talk. I sense a lot of that when I'm listening to Derek Jeter be interviewed. You think about the Michael Jordan conversations that are on video where you hear him talk about the passion, his passion that he has. All of these things are connected. These guys have this incredible passion for success and winning and all the things that make them champions. And what doesn't seem to enter into their mindsets or come out of their mouth are excuses.
In the work world, I think that people are petrified of losing their jobs, though. Somehow the corporate world has created a culture where you cannot make a mistake. And I'm not sure exactly how that has come about, but it seems from somebody that was in the corporate world for a very long time that managers, leaders, the big wigs within the organization, that if you made a mistake, you were gone.
I think it's connected. Within the corporate environments, you actually have a lot of excuse making. And excuse making is, in some cases, throwing the underling under the bus. It's pawning off the mistake on someone else, which is you messed up, you're fired, is a manager or a leader's reaction that is actually an excuse. I'm going to look bad, or somebody above me is going to ask me what went wrong here, and I'm not strong enough to own it because I'm afraid I'm going to lose my job. And so I'm going to throw somebody else under the bus, which is excuse 101. It is where it is established. And I think that you're right that the corporate sort of thing is that you can't be a human being. There is no perfection out there. And so the fact that you can't be a human being and you remove that from the corporate environment means that you're going to have this excuse explosion, so to speak. And that is at the heart, I believe, of our poor customer experience that we have out there.
In the last 2 years, the ultimate excuse has been created, and it's one word.
COVID.
Oh,
that was COVID. Supply chain. Oh, it's COVID. Our customer experience is poor. Oh, that's COVID. I'm so sick of that. That's an excuse. It's every default excuse on the planet right now. And that's part of where I'm at today, and why I'm on this stump is I'm done. I'm done with excuses. And I hope I've been done all along, but I'm not even interested in relaying somebody else's excuse anymore. Maybe I've been guilty of that over the last year, maybe buying into it a little bit, supply chain issues, and this and that. And it's like, I'm done relaying other people's excuse. I'm in this call you out mode. If you want to have a conversation with me right now and you've got an excuse, probably not good timing to have a conversation with me with excuses.
Thanks for the warning on that.
There you go.
Good to know.
There you go. A little passive aggressive statement there. Here's one for a timely reason. My business is down because my referral sources have dried up. Interest rates are up and I'm not getting the homeowners referrals. True statement. That's real. And number one, it's okay. You were getting 400 referrals a month and now you're getting 200 referrals a month. That's still pretty good. That's still better than the average. The second thing is we've had it really, really nice for a while. And if you've been in the game of mortgage referrals or real estate referrals, we have had an unbelievable run in the insurance industry around the mortgage space. Unbelievably low interest rate cycle that we were in. What happens to us is we believe the good moments, the cycle that we're in when things are great, are just always going to be there. It just becomes normalized to us. We project out 20 years how great it's going to be because this cycle's never going to end. And that is just not true. There's cycles of the economy, the cycles of the industry. We always have to reinvent the strategy of how are we going to create referrals? How are we? And we've been in this conversation for a while, off and on. I want to caution us to not go down this excuse path. Don't do the excuse thing to your staff. Don't give that reasoning. Don't blame it on COVID. Don't blame it on interest rates. It's just a fact. Interest rates are up. Home buying is going to be down. The housing bubble, the housing market's going to cool off. That's going to happen. Just own it. Just know it. And let's go find something new. Let's go be creative with where the next referral source is going to come.
Years and years ago, I was working at a radio station that gave away a Harley Davidson. And we were doing a drawdown, which means you start out with, 100 numbers in a bucket. And as you call the numbers out, that person's out. And whoever is left is the person that gets the prize, right? And I remember this like it was yesterday because it was my first major mistake that I ever made in a grown-up job. We got down to like the top 5 people standing there, and there were only 3 numbers in there, which meant that I had missed something. And in that moment, I just owned it and said, I've screwed up. What I'm going to do is for each of these people that are standing here, I'm going to write you a check for $105 and we're going to start over. Because in that moment, it was the only thing that I knew that I could do. And it wasn't an excuse. It was this is it. I messed up. This isn't right. But we owned it. I will say that our owner at the time was not happy about having to write those checks out of my promotional budget. But that's okay, because it was really in my brain in that moment, this is how to fix a problem. But I think the outcome was the best that it possibly could be, because I didn't try to make an excuse. I just said, hey, I messed up.
I think that fits very well with our core value, honesty wins. I messed this up. Can't go on. Whoa, we've got to stop. I think that actually is what we need. Society needs it. Our businesses need it. Maybe I'm still a super optimistic believer that most people, most of your customers are going to understand. There may be a few. Don't get me wrong. There are a lot of Karens and Daves out there. They're still in the minority, my opinion, in terms of the people who aren't going to respond well to some business owner, point of sale person owning a mistake. But here's the key. How do we respond to that mistake? Are we going to fix it? Are we going to do the best we can to solve the problem? If we have that, then we are winning in our failure, because we're going to fail. You can't do anything about it. In the Derek Jeter documentary, he talks about the first year in the minor leagues. He made something like 56, don't quote me on that, but I'm going to use that number, 56 errors. His comment was, it's hard to make that many errors if you're trying to make errors. And he was the number 1 draft pick. He owned it. He goes, I was terrible. It was bad. But he went back to work and he did this. And I think that's where we are in our businesses, and why we are seeing such a degradation of customer service and customer experience is because we're worried about the few Karens out there instead of focusing on the majority of customers that are going to say, hey, we appreciate that. You're going to win loyalty. My experience is every time I've owned something up versus made an excuse, I gained more loyalty.
So how do I tell a customer that their car insurance is going up 48% without giving them an excuse?
This is going to sound a little like double speak here, a little double talk, but there are facts. It's okay to use facts. There has to be some explanations. The issue is when you talk about things that aren't relevant to the client. I use the example that I have used in the past. When Liberty Mutual purchased Safeco, within a year, I'm at a conference and I'm listening to the Liberty Mutual CEO at the time, or maybe COO at the time, and talk about their results. And the results for that year were really good from my view. We had really strong profit sharing contingency dollars that year. We were really profitable, happened to be in a time where we had a really low loss ratio. And this high-level executive talked about we had an average year mostly impacted by cat losses in our Asian Pacific subsidiaries and the Chilean mudslide. And it was like, what is he talking about? What does that have to do with me? And what he was explaining is that the fact of the matter is this company, $40 billion company at the time, they have exposure that I can't comprehend. They have business that I can't comprehend. And this isn't a jab at him at all. He was doing his job, and he was doing a very good job. But it was just this eye-opening experience for me that I wasn't connected to his world. He wasn't necessarily connected to my world. And his explanation, I couldn't really call it an excuse because it was a fact. It was the reality that the Chilean mudslides, the Asian Pacific losses that they experienced from typhoon season impacted their entire profitability picture, even though their Safeco subsidiary was extremely profitable. So before your eyes gloss over, where I'm going with that is you can't say that to your auto customer. You can't go, it's all those cat losses in Florida. That may be real. You have to break down and say and understand that your customer doesn't understand insurance. Your customer doesn't understand risk transfer. They just pay it because they have to. You have to empathize and get down to this level of, do you have inflationary things going on in your life? Is this up? Is this other thing up? Is there an area of your life where you're not experiencing an increase? And have a dialogue with that customer. It's honest. You're going to experience some cost increase within your insurance premium because things are going up. That is not an excuse. It is a fact. I'm centered more around the excuse-laden areas of why I didn't call you back in the last week, because I was afraid of having a hard conversation with you. Those are the things that I see people doing. I don't necessarily see people having a difficult time explaining what's going on within the insurance market. I see people that are trying to be too perfect because they're afraid of having a hard conversation. They delay. And every day they delay making that return call, the more frustrating a customer gets.
I want to know your thoughts on preemptive strikes when it comes to this reason for rate increases. A few people have asked me about that, about creating a social media campaigning, letting people know why the industry is having these tremendous rate increases, about sending letters ahead of time, doing videos on TikTok or Facebook or Insta explaining this, having infographics about it. What are your thoughts on that?
I have mixed emotions about it, assuming that everyone's going to have the same impact, and doing something sort of one-to-one that is somewhat generic is not good. That's different when you get to a social media campaign. You can talk about factual things. The industry is behind the eight ball on pricing, on rate. This loss cost increase is causing some knee-jerk reactions at the carrier level. That's true. That's accurate. Having some general campaigns out there is not bad. But I also know that we had a conversation about the do nothing strategy. And I think there's a percentage of people that can do that and have success as well. I think the key is to not become obsessed with the market cycle. I see folks creating undue stress on themselves and their staff because they're hitting the panic button and they're like, we've got to send out communications to everybody. That's fine. Do a communication, talk very high level stuff, but understand, don't necessarily transfer your panic to your customers. That's a really important balance to keep, because don't forget, this market cycle is a disruption time as well. If you're feeling the disruption, then you can actually be part of becoming a disruptor. That's a really important piece to always take away from one of these market cycles, is if you get so overburdened and so stressed and so zeroed in on retaining every single customer and trying to do everything you can, well, you're going to fail. You can't retain every single customer. In an incredible, very stable market cycle, you're not going to retain 100% of your customers. So stop trying to retain 100% of your customers in a hard market. It's just this obsession thing that we have to stay away from. Sometimes
we forget that social media is about being social. And the last thing that your customers want to see on your social media is negativity. Now, social media is about branding. And if it is some kind of campaign with a negative message about rate increases that are going to hit their wallet, that is, to me, one of the quickest ways that you're going to get unfollowed, or they're going to scroll right past it. So I really think taking the opposite side of that, making sure the things that you're posting are positive, branded messages, especially in a difficult time like this, I think is going to do way more for your brand than doing an entire campaign about negativity that they're not going to read anyway.
That's part of where I'm trying to say there, is that if you become obsessed about what's going on, that's going to swing negative. That's going to swing into the negative territory. And then you're not there to be part of the disruption on your positive lift. You're going to lose customers. You need to replace those customers. Well, somebody else out there is losing customers too. So why not be part of that solution for that group of customers who are abandoning where they're at? That's staying balanced and being positive. And I love that approach. And I think that's part of this get out of the excuse mindset. Well, I can't do new business because I'm too focused on my renewals.
How are we handling renewals right now at Integra?
Very balanced approach. We're actually using this exact thought. We've automated a lot of things in our system. We're very fortunate that we've been able to do that. And we have triggers within our system. There are high risk, low risk scenarios where email campaigns are fired off. We do everything we can to retain the customer where they are. It's always our first goal is to not have to remarket them, but we will remarket them if they're in that high risk category. A scenario for us where if we don't have a proactive remarket approach, then we're probably going to lose this customer. And again, we've been able to segment this. So as I say that, keep in mind, we've raised the threshold of what we consider at risk. We've increased the percentage, we've increased the dollar amount. And we've done this so that our people can be more client centric. They can stay positive, and so that we can be part of the disruption as well by writing enough new business that the natural attrition that's going to happen in a hard market is helping us stay ahead of this curve.
What do you say to the independent agent that thinks you should remarket every policy every time it comes up for renewal?
They're going to experience a decrease in revenue, decrease in clients, because they can't, even if they remarket, they can't keep them. They're not going to hang on to 100%. You've already written this policy once. Why do you want to write it again? I just don't think it's a good strategy. If you wrote the customer base the right way, and look, this is part of it. If your lead generation system brings you price sensitive customers, then those price sensitive customers are also going to be price sensitive with you. They're going to ask you to remarket. They're going to ask you, they're going to be a heavier burden on you, especially during a cycle like this. I'm just not a fan of remarket everybody. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something. You're probably going to get an unfriendly knock on the door from your carrier partners because your retention at the individual carrier levels are going to suffer tremendously if you remarket every single year. Keep in mind, the marketplace itself isn't necessarily growing tremendously from an insurance standpoint. So once a customer is acquired at the carrier level, they hope to hang on to that customer for a certain period of time to actually turn a profit on that customer. So if you're contributing to their pain and you're a big contributor to a lower retention rate for them, just because you're writing a lot of new business with them, that doesn't mean you're profitable. If you're running a 60% retention ratio with them and it doesn't matter how much new business you're writing, that's still not going to be profitable for them.
I was looking through some Derek Jeter information, and he actually has a famous quote that says, "When I was younger, I was always taught not to make excuses." So it was a learned skill very specifically that he applies to life.
Work harder. I hope as a parent, I've done that with my kids. It's always been work harder. And I hope that that's the way that they approach things in their life. And as they hit ages where they're either in college or starting careers, I really think that society needs this. I really am burdened by the high level of excuses that I hear, that I see, why something's not working for someone. I think it's rampant in our job lack of commitment. There's just a lot of things that I see there where there's this ladder climbing, job hopping, and it's excuse after excuse at the end of the day. It's really not anything other than excuses. The thing that really, really bugs me is just folks that are impacting our customer experience and impacting the customer service environment because they just won't own their own failure. They won't own the mistake. And that's just gotten under my skin to the point that I'm exploding.
You're exploding in your very calm, rational way.
This is me exploding. Yes.
I'm going to leave us today with this quote from the captain. "There may be people who have more talent than you, but there's no excuse for anyone to work harder than you."
Attitude's a choice. Make a great one.
Bye, y'all.
Ready to get the ball rolling with your independent agency? Learn more at IntegraAgent.com. That's IntegraAgent.com. Thank you for joining us on IA Forward. Make sure you never miss a show by clicking the subscribe button now, or learn more at IAForward.com.